Mr. Goyal is not known to mince words. We just saw that in Europe, where he was there in Berlin. He just told them very plainly that India doesn't negotiate with a gun to its head. But firstly, he's been globetrotting. 2 days back, he just came back from Europe. And again, there is a European Union team coming in. So we're very grateful, sir, that you could make it to Bangalore. You've been always supporting ET Startup Awards. So really, thank you so much. So going on to what you said in Berlin, where did that come from?
I think it was just a matter of fact that I mentioned. There was no plan. It was just a dialogue like this. And certainly nothing planned. It was a honest answer. And I think at that particular moment, since there was also the issue of the specific carve-outs that Germany had been taking from sanctions or requesting, UK had already taken a carve-out for the subsidiary of a Russian company. I think possibly I was a little agitated also.
All right. Minister Goyal, you've been sort of globetrotting, you've visited many countries, talks are happening with a number of countries. So what is the FTA pipeline looking like for this year? How many are you expecting to conclude?
Aren't you asking a deadline again?
But I'm sure you've been very positive. You told us about the European Union. We've sort of firmed up around 50% of the chapters, issues closed. So what are the kind of deals that we expect this year?
See, first of all, one must recognize there's a huge appetite for entering into trading arrangements with India. And that's a big thumbs up to all of you and to all entrepreneurs in India. It's tremendous to see the kind of response you get, the fact that you have a reasonably good edge on the negotiating table. I can share with you that we are talking to the European Union, to the US, to New Zealand. We're in dialogue with Australia for the second tranche. Oman, the Honorable Minister is coming tomorrow morning, flying in only to have a couple of hours meeting with me. I have negotiations going on with Chile, Peru, Eurasia, 3 or 4 more in the pipeline who want to start negotiations, but we've completely run out of bandwidth.
Wow, that's like a huge number of agreements. But when is the big one sort of coming?
The one with New Zealand?
One which President Trump just mentioned is about to be finalized.
Friends, I don't think it's a question about big or small. It's a question about our national interest. Wherever we get a good deal, a fair deal, an equitable deal, India will be ready to put signature on paper. I think we are at an advanced stage of discussions, both with the European Union and the US. We'll probably also conclude Oman and New Zealand very soon. Chile is very keen to conclude quickly, but it's so far off that just the communication, though we're doing a lot of work on video conference, and that's something COVID has left behind very well for all of us. So I think almost these 5 FTAs would run parallelly, and let's see how the dates and days pan out. But very good progress being made. And you'll observe the one common thread is that India today negotiates with developed countries, advanced economies. India wants to sit on the high table and contribute to their future as we would like them to contribute to our journey to Viksit Bharat 2047. as we would like to grow our economy rapidly, doubling every 8 years, as we want to grow from a 4 trillion to a $32 trillion economy, it's going to be a very exciting journey in the Amrit Kal. And I think opening the doors to greater engagement, greater trade with well-meaning countries who have been there, done that, is going to help our economy significantly.
Since you said there has been significant progress, and you gave us quite a lot of detail with regard to European Union, could you also enlighten the audience on what's happening with the US industry, and everybody feels that a 15% would be a good deal for India? What is your take?
Well, every agreement stands on comparative advantage to other nations. The important thing is not the amount of tariff. The important element will be what will be the comparative advantage India will have over its competitors. Tariffs are not paid by the Indians, they are paid by the Americans. So really the negotiation is always to find that competitive edge which will help us grow our business. We have an ambitious target with the United States to double our engagement on goods and services to about $500 billion by 2030. That's about $500 billion out of the $2 trillion that we want to do globally. And I think we will be well positioned to achieve that.
And where are we in negotiations? You said we had it's progressing very well, but coming back to the timeline, by year end, hopefully?
राज को राजी रहने दो.
Okay, राज को राजी रहने देते हैं. Coming back to what's happening in the geo-economic front, sir, is there a realignment which is required in India's overall trade strategy? We exited RCEP negotiations. Is there a rethink on that?
First of all, every planning that one nation does or every economic direction in which we proceed will always be dynamic. With changing times, with changing geopolitical alignments, with changing circumstances, no nation, just like no business or no startup, can afford to be static. We have to be dynamic, we have to move with times, we have to engage with different countries based on different situations. For example, possibly we wouldn't have been as keen on an FTA with Chile and Peru if it wasn't for the critical minerals that they have to offer and our own interest to have resilient supply chains for our rare earth requirements. So we'll continue to see the evolving situation around the world and decide our trading strategies. As of now, I can assure you that there's absolutely no rethinking on RCEP. RCEP basically was a bad policy decision of the Congress and UPA government to enter into negotiations. In fact, as you may be aware, we were never a part of RCEP's original scheme of things. It was the 10-nation ASEAN bloc, China, Japan, Korea, Australia and New Zealand. India didn't figure. I've been looking into the files to try and figure out what prompted the committee headed by the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, at the high-level dialogue that is held at the ministerial level to decide to engage with RCEP. More so, we are intrigued because before that, Mr. Rahul Gandhi had signed some agreement with the Communist Party of China, which till today remains a Raj. We don't know uske piche kya tha. वो राज भी अभी तक खुला नहीं है.
But
and mind you, at that point of time also, we already had an FTA with ASEAN. We already had an FTA with Japan and Korea. We would have quickly closed an FTA with Australia where negotiations were already advanced stage. And New Zealand, our total trade at that time was barely $350 million. So effectively, we were offering ourselves to enter into an FTA with China. And to date, I have not found any business person who acknowledges that China offers you fair trading practices where you can engage on competitive terms and benefit mutually. It would have been a one-sided benefit for China. India would have lost out big time. And possibly you wouldn't have so many startups to celebrate a startup award every year.
Well, there's been, lately we've seen some thaw in China, with relations with China, especially there's been some development on rare earths supply, which has been resumed.
So, of course, we have been engaging with China for years. And engagement was pretty much normal until 2020. It is post Galwan and a little bit post the COVID lack of resilience in the supply chains that we suffered badly during that period that caused a little problem. Now that the border dispute has been largely taken care of, we've had the defense minister visit China, we've had the foreign minister visit China. As a part of the SCO summit, the Honorable Prime Minister also went, though it was not a bilateral visit. And I think if things get normalized, it'll be good for everybody.
PN2 also?
Press note 3.
Press note 3, sorry.
Well, as I said, situation keeps evolving. And I'm not one of those who stands on prestige or stands on a point of view just for the sake of it. So we have an open mind. And with an open mind, we will see, we will engage with industry, we will engage with other ministries, possibly also engage with China, and then decide whether we can loosen the investment scrutiny.
Coming to startups, when your government came to power, Startup India was launched. Many initiatives sort of came about. The startup ecosystem, it's sort of gained a certain size. How do you sort of, Piyush Ji, other Piyush Ji is here, he's just completed a very successful listing. So you have such examples there. But how do you see this ecosystem really sort of going forward now on?
Well, I think we've only just begun, as we see with some of our successful startup entrepreneurs sitting here, some of the award winners who've done India proud. Congratulations, Piyush. Today is a very momentous day for you. I see a lot of investors sitting in the room today who've also contributed significantly to this journey. Government has been on the forefront, playing on the front foot to support the startup ecosystem through a variety of policy initiatives, through funding. We've already announced the second leg of the Startup Fund of Funds, the second tranche, which will be largely focusing on deep tech innovations and startups. The research and development initiative is also got a leg up with the 1 lakh crore fund. And mind you, I hope our friends recognize that when we talk of 1 lakh crore government support, when you supplement that with the private sector investments, the figure grows. And then when you see the cost of innovation in India versus the cost of innovation in, let's say, Europe or America, you have a 7 or 8x multiplier there also. So you are really seeding with 1 lakh crore government funding, nearly 10 lakh crore worth of innovation in the country. And that's huge. And I certainly believe that all of these policies put together, along with the wonderful work that our startups are doing, our young entrepreneurs coming out of college, young men and women coming out of college, turning into entrepreneurs, a number of them experimenting with new ideas, people moving more and more into job creation and becoming job creators rather than job seekers. The fact that we get such good support from the media, from Indian industry who are also investing in the startup ecosystem, all of these lend me to believe that the story has just begun, and India will clearly emerge as the flavor of the globe, and will clearly be providing to the world newer and newer innovations, newer and newer ideas, which will then lead the world's effort to improve the ease of living or improve the lifestyle of people.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Deep Tech Fund of Funds and the R&D Fund. One of the issues which industry oft sort of highlights is, the kind of funding support that is available in Western economies. The pension funds, the sovereign wealth funds, there's large capital which is available to them. Is there any thinking in the government on allowing that funding getting channeled to the startups?
I think so. I think we are all pretty much convinced that we'll have to look at supporting the startup ecosystem or our innovation ecosystem in different ways. I agree with you that one of the methods could be our large pool of capital with insurance companies and pension funds or provident fund capital being also deployed, particularly given this huge amount of success stories that our startups are seeing. I mean, the kind of listing, the kind of upside that many companies, many investments have given, led me to believe that more and more managers of funds, even in the government, would now be exploring possible investments in the startup ecosystem.
That's a huge, very positive thinking on allowing this flow of funds to this sector, sir. And you've been constantly engaging with this sector. You've had meetings today, you've had meetings yesterday with the startup tech entrepreneurs. And you've also flagged in the past, how other countries had, made leaps. The startups there had made leaps in AI, chips, and high-tech area, whereas Indian startups have not been able to do so.
I didn't say that. I said we have a lot more to do. So
okay,
please don't take away from all the wonderful work these young men and women
No,
are
so
doing.
my question to you is, how do you see Indian startups really scaling up to get there?
Frankly, today's engagement with the deep tech ecosystem was truly an eye-opener for me also. I heard of some wonderful work being done on quantum computing. I heard about a lot of good work on applied artificial intelligence modules and platforms. Cyber security is now catching flavor with many of our startups. A number of Indians are also looking to re-engage with India. And I see there's a reverse flow of people coming from Silicon Valley or Europe. And even during my travels, I meet a lot of people who talk to me about wanting to come back to India because the sheer demand that 1.4 billion Indians generate, the fact that now it's an ecosystem that's maturing very rapidly, the fact that today listing in India is far more profitable and exciting than listing anywhere else in the world, save and except maybe the US. But again, the US is just a club of 10 companies. You remove those 10 companies, I don't think the others get similar valuations. So India is a preferred destination also for modern technologies or deep tech. And I think this will be a journey which takes a little time to develop, but once it takes off, sky's the limit. And from what I've seen and heard today particularly, I'm very excited about the journey ahead.
Will it require some form of regulatory support or more funding support from the government side?
Well, for funding support, we are always there and ready. On regulatory support, at least I personally believe, the less the regulation on the industry, the more successful they will be. If you see the entire software sector's growth is because government stayed out of their hair. And right from Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, when the Y2K bug hit the world, and in a way, the software or the technology sectors started flourishing from 99 onwards. They've never looked back. And the biggest advantage was government never interfered in their business. I think the startups also do not want any more interference. On the contrary, government is working overtime to decriminalize laws, to make it easier to comply with process and procedure. We are reducing the compliance burden. There are high-level engagements. Rajiv Gaubaji is heading a committee to look at decriminalization and ease of doing business. We have ministerial panels working day and night to reduce the regulatory overload on businesses, including startups. So our effort is to get out of their lives, not add to the burden on their lives.
Okay, no adding to the burden. One last one on startups. In terms of domestic flow of capital to startups, you've always been sort of championed that. But has it reached the state it should have?
No, I think there's lots more to be done. When I met the venture capitalists or investing community today, this was one of the major items on the agenda. I'm not wanting to give you a headline because the word that I wanted to use, I thought I'll refrain from using. But I've been trying to persuade the...
All right, persuade is the... Wow.
is a better word. I've been trying to persuade large family offices in India or domestic industry, domestic capitalists to look at putting up much larger pools of capital for the startup ecosystem. I know many people are looking at the startups through their family offices. I'm particularly keen that we create pooled capital so that it can reach even remote corners of India. It can reach tier 2, tier 3 cities also. Because very often just family offices will not be able to meet the larger needs that the startup ecosystem would need. I do hope in the years to come, we'll see greater degree of domestic capital because while we welcome all capital and it doesn't matter where the capital comes from, domestic or international, I would love to see more of our innovation, more of our new research staying within India and the fruits of that also staying within India.
On the foreign investment front, especially FDI, there's been a bit of slowdown. So do you see a need to revisit some procedures, some norms to perk up investment flows into India?
Well, while I don't see the slowdown, on the contrary, the figures up to July or August that I last saw, there's a significant bump up in the FDI flows. Having said that, I certainly believe we need to continuously evolve our processes. So we are looking at both FDI and FII flows and how we can make it easier for money to flow into the country. I would urge all of you also to share any ideas that you may have or any problems that you may have faced. We are open to your ideas, we are open to your suggestions, and we would love to engage. If Economic Times wants to run a campaign to get good ideas on the table, we will welcome it. And we certainly want to make it easier for investors to look at the India growth story. We are the fastest growing large economy in the world today. And personally, I see the next 3 decades will be India's time and will continue to be the fastest growing large economy for a long, long time into the future.
Well, India growth story remains intact and is moving forward very robustly. We had major sweeping GST reforms. Are more steps likely going forward, especially, amid so much of global turmoil? You've mentioned the FDI, but any other steps that the government is willing to take?
I think the world has seen the resilience, the stability, and the confidence with which India is steering its path. Otherwise, they wouldn't all be wanting to do business with India in an increasing manner. Our exports have grown even in the first 6 months of this year. And I assure each and every one of you, we're going to close FY26 with higher growths than last year. So India is well on path to continue to do well. At the same time, there will continuously be new ideas. See, we had the income tax, dramatic improvements in the budget this year. We've had a game-changing and I think the largest reform package in indirect taxation. The journey from 17 to 25 has been an exciting journey, but culminated in the current year's transformational impact on and promoting consumer spending in a big way. This will be a continuous process in several directions. So I think we want to become a developed economy, a prosperous economy. We want the economy to be inclusive and sustainable in its growth journey. And towards that end, I think newer ideas are going to be a continuous process.
On that note, Minister Goyal, thank you so much for taking out time. And
Thank you.